This film is part of a project that focuses on finding ways to reduce carbon emissions from transport.
Here at the University of Brighton, we've spent 3 years investigating everyday mobilities, examining all the different ways people move about, but also understanding mobility to be more than just physical movement. It's also the ways objects and ideas move from place to place or person to person.
So how is it possible to disrupt current mobilities to reduce carbon emissions?
Life is complex, so people's mobilities are inevitably complex too. There's no easy answer. But our research found that in some circumstances there is more capacity to change. But this capacity is influenced by a number of important factors. This is because society is made up of different people who live under different conditions, have different opportunities and different lifestyles.
My personal gripe about bus stops is the seats, because they're never big enough for adult bums. They're good for little boys' bums, but they're little boys, they can't put their feet on the ground, and they always seem to be made for adult men. So this man is 6'2", and he can fit his feet nicely on the ground, but when I sit, as I'm 5'4", on these seats, my feet don't really fit the ground properly, so it just doesn't feel like they've been designed with women like me in mind.
Some people face fewer barriers to mobility. They have more options of how to get things done, whether this means catching a bus or accessing the internet. Those people have more capacity to change to lower carbon forms of mobility.
So how do we understand this capacity to change to lower carbon forms of mobility?
To understand this, we need to look at the nature of people's interdependent mobilities. Mobilities are bound up in various aspects of everyday life. Firstly, in people's intimate relationships and social networks. Social connections, particularly with those closest to us, are important in helping change mobility. This is not about individual responsibility, because so much of what we do and the decisions we make are dependent on other people. We need social support and recognition that some mobility practices are easier to change than others. Secondly, it's important to be aware of changes in mobility through the life course and how experiences of life events, like having children, moving house, changing jobs or retiring, might disrupt mobility in ways that can either increase carbon emissions or allow people to adopt lower carbon ways of living.
I have a lot more travelling now that I'm in Hove because I'm not so central. It's slightly more challenging when I'm with Rosa because it's not 2 minutes to the shops, it's kind of like a 10-15 minute walk with her. Even if you're walking on your own, it'd be 5 minutes. So you have to think more carefully about, do I need a loaf of bread, do I need some milk? The amount of times I get back in and I'm like, oh, I haven't got this, that and the other, and I'm not going to just pop back out again because it's just too difficult with her.
Thirdly, mobility is generational. People of different generations have more or less capacity to change, especially if their experiences are negative ones.
So what does this mean in terms of rethinking mobilities?
So lower carbon mobility means accepting that for certain people at certain times, higher carbon emitting practices must be considered, while more restrictions could be placed on those with the capacity to change, such as those with fewer caring responsibilities and more flexibility in their daily practices.
So what does this mean for policy?
Policies need to take into account people's mobility experiences and involve ordinary citizens, including particular groups like deaf or blind people, children and older people, whose insights about mobility are often overlooked. Policies that might succeed in changing our culture of mobility, which regards car travel as the norm, need to take into account emotional and multisensory experiences of mobility. These are the experiences that underpin what people do and the choices they make.
So what can transport policy do?
Transport policy can help in a number of ways, particularly in recognising how we can make the everyday complex experiences of low-carbon travel more pleasurable.
Remy?
Yeah?
You like bus travel?
Yeah.
Okay, what's good about it?
Because I like going out.
Like going up. Okay, what are you doing, Alfie?
I like looking at the back and seeing cars. Some look like sharks and some look like big metal crabs.
Oh, that sounds good. Should we have a look?
Full stop.
But transport policy alone is not enough. Factors including what stage of life we're at, what our responsibilities are, and how we're involved in work, caring, education, shopping, and a whole host of leisure and recreation activities affect our mobilities. It also depends on where these activities take place, where we live, and how we manage to timetable this all together to create everyday lives.
So what is the key challenge here?
The challenge is to facilitate people's capacity to change to lower carbon travel, while enabling people to go about their everyday lives and recognising people's different needs. This will help us change to lower carbon mobilities.